Hey YouTube, and welcome to the MCs Unscripted, where we talk to artists, entertainers, and behind-the-scenes decision makers who are some of the best at what they do. So today we have something a little special for you guys. So for a long time now, you may have noticed that we've been focusing on music and wellness. You may have seen on one of our previous videos by Bryant Larson, he talks about music and the curing of Alzheimer's disease, fibromyalgia, and cancer. And obviously, so we are musicians and educators on the channel. So today we wanted to talk to a panel of professionals to ask you guys, did we get it right or not?
Maybe there may be some survival advantage if you listen to music, one listens to music consistently, because of the benefit it seems to show with anxiety and depression and actually mood in general.
Phenomenal how music can affect people's minds and bodies so differently. Because I thought it was amazing what you said, Edwin, earlier about it. The acceptance of the disease could possibly slow down the progression of it. So
think of, the developing fetus in a womb, and what is the sound that is constant? It's
the reggae beat.
And so, it's when we hear that kind of rhythm, is it that we are recalling at our most fundamental, deep in the recesses of our, primeval brain, a safe space. At a very deep instinctual, that it really is something that we react to, and then we process it afterwards. We think, oh, that's a beautiful melody, or I was moved to tears by those lyrics, or I just wanted to get up and dance. But those are the things that we think about after. But our initial reaction is so fast to music that it is before the brain, the cognitive parts of the brain can catch up.
Wow, that I learned so much just now.
So did I.
It made me think of this video that I did previously on the channel about opera music versus metal music, and which one's better. And I was just thinking, I feel like opera music would just be much better for somebody's well-being. The metal music, I don't think so. It would make sometimes when I listen to it, no offense to the metal lovers out there, but it just makes me a little bit anxious, a little bit stressed. Absolutely. For some reason.
Well, there's a very interesting study that looked at, first they studied in a male population, and then they did the same study repeated in a female population, and they looked at the effect of heavy metal music versus it was one of the classical composers, but I don't remember which one. Mm-hmm. And they did find that in both men and in women, that there was a heightened activation of the sympathetic nervous system with the heavy metal music. So that what you've experienced is a bit of anxiety or is actually, there are studies that will show that the type of music does impact, which is not necessarily related to your preference. Right, you may love heavy metal music, but it's still going to have more of an excitatory effect on the body than other types of music.
Well, let's get back to the video.
For those families affected by Alzheimer's disease, it is simply one of the most devastating diagnoses that you can receive. One that carries with it a crippling toll on the patient as well as the families of the patient. It's another one of those diseases with no known cure or even a medicine to help mitigate the significant effects that this disease carries on the brain. So when Dr. Lee Bartel expanded his research of sound on the brain and body to include the treatment of Alzheimer's disease, you can imagine the implications. You see, Dr. Lee Bartel used a principle called entrainment, which is a process whereby two interacting oscillating systems, tend to fall into synchrony. When he realized that the brain uses 40 hertz to communicate between both hemispheres, he reasoned that he could use that same frequency outside of the body to facilitate communication inside of the brain. And it freaking worked. Writing and using music that contained a lot of this 40 hertz frequency, basically a low E, he began to see significant progress in patients ranging from fibromyalgia to blood flow irregularities. Soon, our doctor just started to use the simple frequency itself, playing over speakers mounted in reclining style medical chairs and prescribed 30 minutes at a time. Well, it turns out the well-known knowledge that music helped facilitate motor and speech recovery was just the beginning of the true power of music and health over all sorts of diseases. Look, I know what you're thinking. And yes, we are talking about peer-reviewed, academic, scientific documentation, not just a guy claiming that he can heal people with musical chairs. The medical benefits of music therapy are vast. We know this. But when Dr. Bartel used his revolutionary 40 hertz frequency to help many Alzheimer patients, the medical field had no choice but to take it seriously. The patient began to remember more, and in rapid time actually began to slow in their symptoms for extraordinary amounts of time. Take a look at this study published in the National Library of Medicine. What you are looking at is the first systematic review focusing on randomized trials of patients with Alzheimer's disease, and the results are amazing. We are talking about literally slowing the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease in patients, not in the future, but now. Studies have shown that music, both listening and playing, introduced early enough in life, help to prevent dementia and other cognitive diseases altogether. There it is.
Okay. So, any thoughts on that? On, like, is he right? Does it prevent more than that? Or even, like, on the emotional side of things? What do you guys think about that?
I feel like it's amazing. I mean, it just goes back to what we were saying before, as far as it changes your mindset and changes your mood, and it brings you to a more relaxed state, and you're able to. I thought it was pretty amazing that he said that patients were able to remember more, and according to a certain rhythm. And that's fascinating. That is really, really fascinating.
Katrine, Dr. Edwin, anything?
Another thing that I would like to add that maybe we haven't touched upon is music is very often a communal experience. And when we talk about illness, and particularly something that is progressive, that takes away, parts of memory, parts of connecting, we think that music can have such an important social role because it allows family members to connect with a person who is suffering from Alzheimer's, again, in a way that the loss is not the primal point of relationship. Now you're connecting with maybe the memory of what that music takes both on all parties to, with a person, let's say I'm the family member of someone who has Alzheimer's, and I'm witnessing and I'm experiencing the loss of the person as I knew them. And all of a sudden we have a means of connecting outside of that. And it takes us both to what was, but it brings the what was into the present moment. And I think, again, that's something very, very powerful about music, is that it is very transportive. I don't know if that's a word, but it can bring us to a place. It can take us out of the present moment and pull us away, but it can also really anchor us in the present moment with someone else. And I think that element of connection, I think music is again, it's one of these really primal experiences that we share with others.
Music seems to be something one tends to retain. One of the appreciation of music is something that's retained for a long time. So it provides a vehicle for communication and connection, when everything else has started to fail. So it is probably maybe very unique as a therapeutic tool, and we just haven't explored its potential enough. We're just learning. Yeah. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I do actually, now that I'm thinking about it, have an anecdote of my own. So I had a couple of piano teachers growing up as a kid, and one of them is kind of how I got into opera. So I started off with piano, and her husband was a doctor, but he was very much into music, into opera, and he would host these kind of opera nights at their house and invite some of the piano students to come, and we're all like young, middle school, teenager kids, and we're like, opera? Okay. You have food? Okay. So we would come over to the house and we'd listen to it, and we're like, what are they saying? But then after all of this, we would actually go to the movie theaters and see the opera together, because they stream operas live from the Metropolitan Opera at certain movie theaters. And so that's kind of how I myself got into opera. And so, later on, I already have gone to school for singing and everything. And I heard that my piano teacher's husband was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And so at one point I went over to their house, and she had asked me to come over and, hang out with him for a bit and listen to some operas, watch an opera or something. And so I came over, and this is my first time, seeing him since he's been diagnosed, and he was, further along at this point. And so I walk into the house, and I hear he's over at the piano just playing some amazing piece. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then, he walks up and say, oh, hi, how are you doing? And he didn't recognize me, and he didn't know who I was. And I was just, wow, like really shocked and taken aback. It was my first experience with something like that. And so my piano teacher, introduced us, and we sat down and had our glass of wine and had our snacks like we usually do, and we sat down and watched an opera. And of course, we were going through, what opera do you want to watch? And he knew all of them. He could remember all of that stuff, and he's like, oh, that's a good one. And it was just very interesting how I'm like, wow, I felt like this was something that we really shared together. Like my love for opera kind of grew from him. Mm-hmm. And then he didn't remember who I was, but we still had that connection like through the music, through opera together. So that, was really interesting to me.
And it probably helped you to feel connected to him. Mm-hmm. Because if you hadn't had that bridge into the bond that you used to have, but which still existed kind of like underneath, but not recognizing you, if you hadn't had that and you had just been left with he doesn't recognize me, you might have had a real sense of loss. Whereas the music was like a vehicle that could allow you kind of like to move through that into how to connect with each other and how you could connect. And I think that often is a real challenge for those of us who are supporting someone, or in your case, visiting someone, because kind of like our cognitive mind is almost like we feel rejected because we're no longer recognized, or why does the person not remember me? I thought I was more important. Why is it that they remember, I don't know, like where the plate is in the kitchen cupboard and they don't remember who I am? And so sometimes it can also help us like overcome those very natural emotions and reconnect with kind of like more of the essence of what our relationship is.
Okay, I will go back to the video.
Doctors and scientists have unanimously agreed that music prevents and cures all sorts of diseases. But here is where I have a problem with it. That statement is not true at all. If you noticed, none of the studies previously mentioned ever used the word cure. You know why? For one, the question of does music cure this or that is the summary of a myopic and flawed view of medicine itself. Remember what I just told you. Music has been shown to have preventative effects on cognitive diseases. well then why would it still be an elective from which there are many to choose and or throw away? Or, like we're seeing now in counties and districts all over America, music and the arts are being completely taken out to boost STEM subjects. And sometimes it's just because the people in charge don't think that it's important enough to fund.
So I do have a question. I feel like Dr. Edwin kind of hinted at before, but so Bryant just mentioned about music being an elective kind of option at school for kids. Do you guys think that music should be mandatory in schools as a form of, I don't know, preventative care?
I think so. I for one think so, because looking at the state of our kids today, it's like they're so filled with so much anxiety, so much pressure, so much stress. They're dealing with so much that their little bodies can even handle. And a lot of the kids that I've seen and that I've dealt with, they don't really have an outlet. They have screen time. They have, just a lot of them don't even have people to talk to. All they have is screens, right? So having something like this, like music, like some sort of music activity, even if it's for a few minutes a day, whether in school or outside of school, just I feel like it should be mandatory in school. It was mandatory when I was when I was in school, in elementary and middle school. It was mandatory, and I feel like, especially now, post-pandemic, all of the things that's going on in our world today, it should be something that is integrated in our schools. A lot of these arts, it seems like they're taking all of these arts away. And as you can see, there's so many mental illness that are coming out now. And it's starting with our kids. And it's such a sad state. It's a really sad state.
I totally agree. I think it should be mandatory because it's such an important role, and it seems to have a legacy effect. So the benefit lasts even if you subsequently drop music or drop you haven't maintained maybe a lifelong interest in music. So, but you're not participating actively anymore. But it seems to have enduring benefit for emotional, physical, and psychological health and well-being. So I said there are so many stressors, and if you're exposed to this level of stress young, it does have consequences for cardiovascular health later on in life. So I would definitely agree that something like music should not be. Not that I'm not in favor. I'm in favor of STEM, yes, but STEM subjects. But I think that there is definitely a place for something like music and probably other art forms to develop the whole person.
And I would totally agree. I probably have one caveat though, and that is that I think that there should be more spaces for experimentation and exploration, and that it's not just, that this is yet another area to compete and excel, and this is right. And if you're first violinist, you're clearly much better than the person in orchestra who plays a triangle, or that the recorder is, for those who can't do anything else. I think that we need more spaces in the school system that allow a child to play more and to see what's pleasing to them. And like, you said, Julia, that you had the perception, opera, what is it? Or that's not for me. I mean, we have so many ways that people feel excluded, whatever it is. We hear in Jamaica, sometimes a child who's interested in classical music is a little bit like a pariah culturally. You should be only interested in the music of your country or your culture. And I think that is a shame. I think that again is you narrow the world down too much. I think music, we find it all over the world, and think, how many different types of musical expression there are. why can't music be a way into understanding a different culture? Understanding, why is it that understanding history and understanding movement of people and of ideas. And, I think, again, we separate the school system into the arts and into the sciences, and we break it further down into the STEMs and the non-STEM subjects. And we can make something like music so much more than it just being an arts subject. And we have to kind of balance a curriculum to give a little bit of, a token into the arts. It can be it's so rich. I mean, we're just discussing about how it impacts our motor neuron skills and our memory, and it activates language and emotion. So let's make sure that the music education can also reflect that.
I really, really love that. I actually took a world music class in college. And that was one of my favorite courses to take because I got to listen to music from all around the world, and, all the rules for that kind of music, like you just chuck all the rules that you learned about Western music out the window, and it's just a new set of things. And it was, it kind of affected me differently, the way that I heard that music. And some of the most interesting and beautiful music that I listened to in that class was from Azerbaijan. It's like Middle Eastern kind of music. It was so interesting. And I was like, man, I wish I could sing some of this. I wish I could actually participate in this kind of music. And a lot of people, don't get to hear the Indian music, Chinese, Asian music, because there's so many different kinds of techniques and rhythms and musical rules that are involved in that. Absolutely. That sort of affect you differently than when you hear regular Western music or European music. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's quite a bridge, and I think your tolerance and for other people who are different, it comes a lot from, if you listen to their music, you recognize that they're also human and they're not unlike you, provided you have a bit of an open mind. And I think that breaks down a lot of barriers.
Yeah. Wow. That was great.
Thank you for watching part 2 of our 4-part series, The Emerging Research of Music in Medicine, a panel of medical experts. Part 3 and 4 will be available in the coming days, and when they arrive, the links will appear right here on this screen. But before we go, I wanted to let you know a little bit about who you were just hearing from. Edwin is a U.S.-Canadian trained cardiologist. Katrine is Chief of Health and Wellness Learning. They are the husband and wife team behind My Heart Wellness, an online program to teach people how to reduce their risk for heart disease and stroke through lifestyle change. Cardiovascular disease remains the #1 killer in the U.S. and across the world. They believe that no one should have to suffer from a heart disease and stroke when it is mostly preventable. Their message is simple but powerful. You can prevent a heart attack or stroke by making simple lifestyle changes. And they'll show you how to do it to make those changes stick. Katrine and Edwin provide the guidance and support you need on the journey towards optimal heart health. Now, if you press the link below for www.myheartwellness.com in the description, a pop-up will then lead you to enter your email address to receive their short email series. Included will be an 8-step PDF guide to heart health. You'll also be able to do an online heart health lifestyle assessment. At the end of the email series, you will receive a discount coupon code if you decide to take out a membership. Support this awesome duo and what they're doing for all of us. And again, thank you for watching the MC's channel. Music at the core of everything.